welcome back to Black Swan Outdoors, and today we are going to talk about survival shelters. More specifically, we're going to talk about the emergency blanket, Mylar blankets, as they're often known, or space blankets. This particular one is made out of SOL, which stands for Survive Outdoors Longer, or Shit Out of Luck, and it's a fantastic product. It's probably one of my kind of go-to recommended pieces of gear to have on you at all times when you're out in the bush, just because it's so handy to have. You can use it for a makeshift shelter, which is what we're going to talk about today. You can use it for solar stills. You can use it for signaling. You can use it for pretty much water gathering, to even first aid applications, and in fact, if you want to get a list of all of the applications you can use for this, check out our blog at www.blackswanoutdoors.com, and we have a blog posting on just that topic. So essentially what the Mylar blanket excels in is it prevents conductive heat loss, so from wind and being in rain, but it also holds in your heat from radiant heat loss as well. So it acts as a kind of a reflective shield, you could think of, to kind of bounce your heat back to you. And so you can use this if you already have a shelter or a tent, for example, set up. You can use this behind a fire to direct heat towards your tent or towards where you're sleeping. You can use this then to also direct heat away from you, so you can use it upside down, essentially, if you're in a really hot and sunny environment, to kind of keep yourself a little bit cooler. So lots of different ways to use it, and of course, just as the picture shows, you can just use it as a blanket and simply just wrap yourself up in it. So today we're going to open up the package and have you take a look at all the different configurations you can do with this super inexpensive and highly functional and very important survival product. All right, so this first formation is the Wedge. It is a very good kind of multi-purpose option for setup. It basically, what it does is it creates a shelter, a roof over your head that helps block sun and wind a little bit from the front, and then of course you're going to want to have this kind of facing into the wind, so the wind is coming up and over, and then this gives you a little bit of coverage here for any kind of rain and inclement weather or any kind of shifting. So you can always bring the Wedge down a little bit more, or you can, which brings the back end up a little bit, or you can bring it all the way down like I have here, and then you could even have a little fire right up in front and stay nice and warm. So this is the Wedge. It's pretty much just a ridge line here. There's a bow line to 2 half hitches on a round turn, and then staked out on each 4 sides. And I just put a little pebble here for your makeshift grommet. So again, that's the Wedge. I'll show you another configuration. All right, this next configuration, very much similar to the Wedge. This is the Aframe. Same ridge line going up the top, and then making kind of a classic A shape. This is very familiar for those that are, this might be a very familiar shape for those for a dining fly. So this is a great opportunity or option for, if you're just taking a break while you're hiking and you want some coverage from some rain and wind, but maybe you're not sleeping in it. You're just kind of hanging out, and you still want to have some airflow underneath and to make it very comfortable and cool, while also keeping protection from up above. So this is the A-frame. Okay, so this is another configuration. This is kind of very similar to how like a shade sail would be put up for like a backyard or a carport. It's often referred to as the flat top because it's pretty flat. I like to kind of give it a little bit of a dip so that if it does rain, it kind of sheds a little bit of the water. This is great for an arid environment where there might not be a lot of rain. Give you a lot of coverage, especially over the sun. And again, you can flip this around so the silver side is up to create a more cooling effect, bouncing back some of that heat rays. This is the flat top or the shade sail setup. Okay, now this setup is the lean-to, and then you'll notice that it's a little bit more steep in the angle here than the first configuration, the wedge. And so what this does is actually helps kind of shed snow off of the shelter, so it doesn't, so snow won't accumulate on that shelter. It also, what it does is it blocks direct wind, and most importantly, it makes for a great radiant reflector, so that if you're having heat from a fire on the other side of this tarp, that it will protect you, particularly if you need to be standing or sitting or on the ground as well. So it gives you that headroom that you need for standing and still getting shelter without having to be cramped in for, say, a longer periods of time. And then it allows it to shed that snow or heavy rain as well. So there's no accumulation that might bring down your shelter. So this is just another configuration, and you can play around with the angle to make sure that it's the best for, you know, your circumstances, but it's generally going to be a little bit steeper than some of the others. Okay, this is the smallest configuration of our shelter. This is the C wedge, and the C wedge gives you full coverage, nearly full coverage. You can make it a little bit wider, bigger, or smaller. The way that I have it is set up over the widthwise, so you would lay down the width of the tarp, which is not enough for a full most grown person, but this is the perfect coverage for a small child, or even two children, to give them full protection, particularly if there is no fire available. So this will be able to kind of trap in some of that body heat. Now, if you are in, say, a winter conditions or very cold conditions, you might be sleeping more or less in a fetal position to kind of protect yourself from heat loss. That's probably going to be pretty common for a lot of people, especially kids. So in this configuration, the smallness of it is actually advantageous because it's not a very big shelter, which you generally don't want to have. That's where you get a lot of heat loss, particularly if you don't have a fire. So you want to kind of curl yourself up into a ball as best as you can, just like squirrels or any other animals do, and to help kind of, again, kind of keep that that heat mass together, and to keep you a little bit warmer. So this is the C wedge. All right, and this is our last configuration. This is the C. The C is very similar to the previous C wedge. It's going to be a little bit larger, so you're going to, with a little less coverage. So you're going to be able to sit in this. Say if you've got very wet ground and you don't want to sit, or maybe you've got snow, or maybe you're worried about losing heat from conductive heat loss, and so you want to put some, you know, some pine boughs or some kind of duff material underneath there, and to be able to sit on it gives you some protection from, you know, things like scorpions or snakes or ticks and that kind of thing as well. So it kind of gives you that coverage to sit on, while also giving the advantage of the lean-to as well. So you could just sit in comfort and warmth, out of the wind, and hopefully in front of a fire, and wait for rescue or whatever the situation is. So this is the C, and there is no ridge line. So this, like the sail, didn't have ridge line, so I can just tie the corners right to these trees. And then you could use a ridge line if you want to call it that, kind of at the very end. I just threw some wood back there, but if I had more paracordage, I could have maybe staked out a line back there to kind of keep it a little bit more neat. And then you'll want to stake out each one of the corners again, to kind of make sure that when you're sitting on there, the material doesn't kind of crinkle around, and making sure that it's going to provide you full coverage on the bottom as well as at the top. So these were the little Mylar tarp configurations. If you've got any experience with these setups, let me know. The only other two kind of setups that we could talk about and I could show you would be just wearing it as a blanket around your shoulders, as we talked about at the beginning of the video, and then also wrapping yourself up like a burrito, using it as like a bivy bag as well, which is, you know, really not a configuration or a setup, just a way to use it. So if you don't have any paracord, or string or cordage or anything kind of mock up these configurations, you can certainly just wrap it around you, or roll yourself up in it, and you'll be you know, protected. And again, you know, even if it's not yourself, maybe someone gets hurt on the trail, and you want to, you know, provide first aid, or to go get help, you can leave that patient in a burrito roll or in a shelter configuration that's easily defined as well. So it might not even be a lost scenario. It could be a first aid scenario as well that you could be using something like this in. So again, there's many uses for it. Check it out on blackswanoutdoors.com, and hopefully you enjoyed this video.